Hey, I'm Lance Lahnert. We want to welcome everybody in for what we hope is an enlightening and informative discussion on the recent decision by the Amarillo City Council on a 4-1 vote to move forward with a $260 million project for expansion and renovation of the Amarillo Civic Center complex. That vote came on May 24th with tax and revenue notes designated to fund the project. Now, this is on the heels of a public vote about 18 months ago, guys, that we had, where 61% of Amarillo residents voted against a bond proposal for pretty much the same project. And in response to the city council action, Alex Fairley filed a lawsuit late in May, and that was in the 108th District Court in Amarillo and Potter County. Alex is the CEO and president of the Fairley Group, along with being obviously a taxpayer and homeowner here in Amarillo. So we're here today to discuss the lawsuit and the actions of the City Council. But before we get to questions, let's welcome in our esteemed panel. We got Mitchell Downing over here. He's from KVII, Channel 7 ABC affiliate. Mitchell is a 2017 graduate of West Texas A&M, young and up-and-coming reporter. He's already proven his diversity in covering news and covering accurately what goes on at Channel 7. Now, Mitchell has lived in the Texas Panhandle all his life. He's a Happy High graduate. And by the way, if you need a golf scramble partner this summer, Mitchell's the man. He played at West Texas A&M and also was a very decorated Class 1A golfer on the UIL level. So welcome in.
Thanks for having me.
We have David Lovejoy, KGNC Radio, obviously. David is the heartbeat of that news department at KGNC, puts in long hours. Now, he's an Amarillo High grad and tapped into this community like very few. He's also the host of The Chat, 7 to 9 every morning. And really, he interviews the movers and shakers of the Amarillo and Texas Panhandle on a weekly basis, like no other journalist in Amarillo. So we welcome you in, David.
Thank you for having me.
And then my guy, Kevin Welch, right here, KFDA Channel 10 and CBS affiliate. Kevin is the assignments editor at Channel 10, as well as being an excellent mentor for young journalists. Now, Kevin previously spent 18 years, almost 2 decades at the Amarillo Globe News, and he built a reputation as the reporter who could handle the tough stories. He's also a very, very talented writer, so we welcome you in, Kevin. So I wanted to bring everybody in and just kind of introduce. This is what it's about today, okay? There are no ground rules, no ground rules. No questions are off limits, and we encourage follow-ups for every question you want to. Full disclosure here also, Alex did not request to see any of the questions prior to this discussion, which I respect that very much. But let's get it going. I'm gonna ask the first one, guys. Really what we all are here and wanna know. Alex, explain your reason of why a lawsuit and its core. You know, what do you hope to accomplish to its core?
Okay. First of all, thank you guys for coming. Not only did I not know the questions, I didn't know who was coming.
Okay.
So it's nice to meet all you guys. I've met you before, David, but Kevin. I'll stay at a high level for now, and we can go into details because that could be 30 minutes to talk about. But at the end of the day, this is about me feeling like that when the City Council a week ago Tuesday decided to go ahead and incur debt on our behalf, which will ultimately end up on our property taxes, that we didn't feel like we got to be involved in it or have really a voice. And at the very, very core, I just don't think that's I don't think it's American. And I think it might be easier in contrast in my answer to say, what it's not about.
That's fine.
This isn't really about the Civic Center. It could be a Civic Center. It could be it could be a dance hall. It could be whatever. It's not so much about the Civic Center. It's not about should we have one or not. Like I'm not saying I won't answer questions about that or what kind we should have if we had one or when we should have one. It wouldn't matter to me the topic. It's I feel like the City Council very, very, very creatively found a way to get something done that 4 of them wanted to get done and we're going to get done kind of no matter what. And on that principal issue, I just felt like someone has to raise their hand and say, wait a minute. So at the end of the day, the goal is to have a real, open, honest discussion, which we'll have to do in front of a judge somewhere.
Let me follow up with this, Mr. Fairley. You said it's not American, but is it legal? Is it legal for them to do the action they did in deciding arbitrarily 4-1?
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Is there precedent that you've talked with legal advice about?
Yeah, so that is a really good question, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to cock off over confidently about something. I can tell you that when I had a hint that this is where they would go. Really over several months of conversations with people, some who have been involved in this, knowing they were going down this road to get this project done. I had heard kind of no matter what, and I knew what the options were. And one was to go back to voters and ask, and I didn't think that was going to happen.
Right.
One was to do certificates of obligation, which it has a little bit of accountability. And this really was the only other way, which you don't have to go ask voters to do.
Right.
So some weeks ago, I went to legal people, because they use this to move City Hall. And I went, and I'd never heard of it.
Yeah.
Honestly, 6 months ago, I'd never heard of certificates of obligation. I'm for sure not an expert in this stuff.
Right.
But I just went to some legal people and said, help me understand this, how would it look? And they came back and said, oh, no, they'll never do that. You don't do things like this with government code, section 1431. And I know, I have it here, and I know more about it than I didn't even know it existed 2 months ago. But these legal folks said they won't do this. It's not made for that. It doesn't work. And then I went and got another opinion from another law firm, and I've now gotten a third opinion from a conservative, well-known conservative think tank. And so I don't know if it will be legal. I have respectable, experienced in this law people saying this isn't right. And in fact, here's what I asked him when the guy who wrote the lawsuit, that filed the lawsuit. I said, look, before we do this, I got to know if this is legitimate. I can't file an illegitimate lawsuit. Like the goal isn't just to, trip people up and, on their way to what's going to happen anyway. And his answer to me was, I think on a scale, I said on a scale of 1 to 10, because I don't know the law.
Right.
He could talk right over my head if, And he said, on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's a 7.5. And he first asked me, well, what's kind of your, what's your limit before you'll file it? And I said, I'm not going to tell you. And he said 7.5. He said, I'd say 8. And he said, well, what was your limit? I said, probably 7.5. I'm not doing 6 and 5s and 2s.
That's it.
The next law firm that I hired a week later who evaluated that work, so it's not their work. And in fact, you might think they'd be inclined to say, oh, we can do that a lot better, or, and their answer to my question was, oh, no, we disagree. This is a 10. And so we'll find out. I'll say this though. I thought this might come up later. In lawsuits, there's just this whole chess game. In our company, we help manage a lot of litigation. We have attorneys, we have legal people, and we manage our clients' litigation. And on any day, we might be overseeing, 300, 400, 500 lawsuits all over the country. Well-known things happening. We're familiar in this world, and I know enough about it to know that there's just wrangling, and there's moves, and sometimes there's tons of things that go on that don't have anything to do with the question.
Yeah.
And so when a guy says it's a 10, it doesn't mean we can win the lawsuit.
Right.
So we may not win the lawsuit. Here's what I would say though. If they have found a way, after voters said, no, we don't want to do this, whatever side you were on, to kind of squeeze through a little opening, then I'm going to feel like the fight was worth it, because I will be raising my hand to then our legislator, and I've talked to all of them. I was with the Lieutenant Governor yesterday, and we had a conversation about this. And I'll be saying, at the end of the day, if just because it's legal doesn't mean
right.
maybe that it was right at the end. So
Yeah.
we don't think it is. I'm not overly confident about that. But what happened here to me is not right.
That's the key.
Sorry, I won't take that long.
No, that's good.
you're
The-
okay.
The lawsuit won't be decided by the public. It'll
No.
be
No.
decided by a jury in court. So you can live with that?
Yeah. So in fact, that's why I filed it. Like I've kind of tried to have this conversation, you know, it's not happening for reasons that don't matter today, and so, you know, in our country, like, listen, you just don't want to file a lawsuit. Like,
Yeah.
it's expensive, it's stressful. You know, some people like it, some people hate it. You know, and it takes time, and it's a distraction to you know your life going on. But it's the only place we have to go to say, wait a minute, City Council, we want to have a discussion about this. Like you did this, you told Colt Stanley on a Thursday and voted on a Tuesday, and when he asked for 2 weeks, you said, no, sorry, you're not getting 2 weeks. Like I don't feel like that's how that ought to go. Didn't have a second reading. Like it's the only place we have to go to say, wait a minute, could we just have a fair discussion about it? And so that's why we did it.
Good enough.
Mitchell or Kevin?
Really, how different? First, you said you tried to have a conversation with who?
Oh, it's a long list, but it's the people that were involved in developing this plan.
Okay.
And listen, I'm looking around where I am. Where's the Amarillo Club? Is across the way over there. I had a meeting in November with a group of 6 local business people. I'll tell you, one of them is Jason Herrick, who led this charge really for the mayor. And I sat him down and said, hey, could we work together on this? I know we were at odds before, but we should try to get together.
Yeah.
And there were many conversations like that, and there just wasn't an openness, for really to have a real conversation. And I don't say that like bad on them. There was a lot of water had passed under a bridge that it just didn't happen. And so,
And so as far as getting to this particular plan, I've been looking at it for years, and so has everybody else, in public meetings and things
Sure.
like that. It's not significantly different from the last one, right?
Right.
Except for
Yeah.
the public-private partnership, which is still real fuzzy. But
yeah, there's no private partnership. Like what happened was, so you're right. The plan it's the same. It's Prop A. The main difference is there's 2 big differences. One is they've moved City Hall already, or they've started the process to move City Hall. So that's not in there. That's whatever, $30-40 million. And then the other difference is that the price tag in November of 2020 was $325 million. They were asking for $275 because they were coming up with 50. Now the price tag's $580, minus City Hall, which makes it over $600, really apples for apples. So one thing that changes, the price is essentially doubled for the same plan. And then there have been some minor modifications, like they made the building a little bit smaller, but it's mostly open spaces as opposed to, so it's really it would be it's why they couldn't do a certificate of obligation, because you can't bring a plan up in a CO later within 3 years, and it's the same
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're spot on. It's the same plan.
Mitch?
So you said you didn't want to file a lawsuit, right? So my question is, why follow the lawsuit? Or maybe a better question would be, who are you standing up for through the lawsuit?
Yeah, the why is just that it's the only place I can go to have like a real discussion about this. Like there'll be a judge or a jury, and there's a set of rules, and everyone's gonna. We hope we get to a lawsuit, to a eventually a courtroom. There's some wrangling that could go on that could kind of avoid it. Maybe we'll see what happens, but you did it. We did it because it's the only way we can have a real discussion. When one of our city council people says, "Could I have 2 weeks to think about it?" and he gets told no, it's pretty obvious there's just not going to be an honest discussion. So, And the people, I would say, are, I don't think of myself as representing anybody. You know, this is a very principled fight for me. Like, I think our city council voted in what's going to be a 30+% property tax without a discussion. And in this case, it happens to be for something that we already got to vote on. Like, my question to the city council is, why did we have a bond election in 2020?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you were just going to do this at the end anyway, like, why did we bother with all that trouble? And, you know, as far as the rush we're in goes, you know, we can't wait for 2 weeks for Cole to get his question. I'd say, what have you been doing for 18 months? Like, you know, you put this commission together in January, you know, with Jason and the assistant manager. It's took all this 18 months to have the same plan, except the price has gone up. Like, and now suddenly we can't wait 2 weeks for Cole. Like, all that stuff just doesn't pass the smell test. So I would say, I can tell you the response I've gotten from the community has been, thank you for sticking up for us, because we don't feel like this is, you know, representative of, you know, of what we would have wanted to do, and we feel like we're kind of getting run over, and I think that applies to every taxpayer. I had a conversation 30 minutes before I came here, because when we opposed Prop A in 2020 on the basis that we didn't feel like the plan was very good, that there could be a lot better one. We still want to do something downtown. On that point, I'm in agreement with the mayor and the 3 people who voted with her. Then we were just disagreeing on what that would look like. And there were a lot of consequences for us. You know, there was some backlash from people who are used to, you know, getting to say what they want happens. And so I was talking to one of my guys this morning who works for us, and I said, hey, how's it going? Like, are you know, because he was frustrated before, saying, I got people saying, I'm not working with you anymore because you work for Alex. And he said, Alex, let me tell you about one call. He said, a close friend called this morning. He said, hey, your boss sued the city. And he said, you know, I didn't tell my company. This isn't really a company thing. And he said, what are you talking about? And he said, oh, your boss sued the city. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And the guy I'm talking to, my sales guy, says, oh, okay, well. And the guy says, no. I wanted Prop A to happen. I voted for it. He said, I'm 100% with him this time. Like, what they did wasn't right. And honestly, I think that applies to, because here's the thing. If we don't stop and say, well, wait a minute, if this wasn't quite right and we squeezed it in, and they can just say, hey, we want to build a whatever, like, can they not do that in a month on something else? Like, if they can just get together with the votes and say, you know, we want to do this, and we don't have to ask taxpayers. I just think that's a dangerous, slippery slope. And so principally, I just feel like, and here's why not many people do. It's expensive. Like most people can't say, wait a minute, I don't feel like this is right. It's going to cost a lot of money. And honestly, I feel a little bit of responsibility. We can do it, and I couldn't say no to it.
Just to set the record straight to make sure people understand, you're not saying, no, I don't want any type of civic center or renovation. That's not the point here of this lawsuit. They're like, no, we don't want to build. You want something. You just want everyone to have a fair and equal say in it, right?
Yeah. The meeting I called in November, I said, look, on the most core issue, listen, it was all people, I'm trying to think, there were 6 guys there. All of them were for Prop A except for me. Maybe there were 2 of us that had voted against it. And my point was, on the core issue, should we do something downtown? We agree. Like, let's just start there and see if we can work together. So, yeah, absolutely, David. Like, we ultimately need to do something downtown. I think it needs to be smart. I think it needs to be the right building, the right size, the right place, the right people running it, the right people in it, inhabiting it. Like, there's a lot there, but yeah, this isn't about that. This is about, can our city council take government code section 1431 and say, we want to spend this money, so if we can get 3 votes, we're spending the money, and we all just got to live with it. I don't think that's right. And I don't think that's what the government code for that was intended for, projects like a civic center. There's a use for 1431.
Right.
It's not civic center.
Can you explain 1431 to us as well in a nutshell as possible?
Yeah, that's like a full dangerous question for me because I'm not a lawyer, but the spirit of 1431, listen, in all the places and statutes where municipalities can raise money, there are pieces of accountability built into them. They can raise taxes about 4% every year without asking, but beyond that, you got to ask taxpayers. So that's why they came and asked us on Prop A. It was a lot more than 4%, and so they got to ask us. They want to issue general obligation bonds. The other way, which is certificates of obligation, there's a little less accountability, but there's still good accountability because they have to give us 45 days notice. This is what happened with moving the city hall, and you remember Craig Altier filed a lawsuit.
Right.
And in that 45 days, citizens have the right to go and get a petition of a certain percentage of voters' signatures, and if they get them, then they have to go ask the voters and have a real election. So that it's accountability. 1431, there is some accountability, but even less. And in fact, those areas where there's accountability, it's part of our lawsuit. We feel like they didn't check the boxes, but there's less, and it's intended for cities in general to do things that are of a critical, we have to do this, nature. Public works things could be water treatment facilities that a fire station burns down, a bridge collapses, could be, things like that. And it's kind of intended to say, look, we don't have time to worry about unhappy voters. Like, we got to get the firehouse built. And that's the spirit. Now, it's far more complicated than that, but that's the spirit of it. Another piece of it that keeps cities narrowed down from abusing it is it only is short-term debt. The longest amount of time you can borrow money in 1431 is 10 years. I think our folks plan to do 7 years. And that basically keeps the project small and narrow. You can't pay off a civic center in 10 years.
Yeah. No way.
We're going to be really lucky to pay off in 30 at this price tag. And so, in fact, I have a list of every time a city in Texas has used 1431 in the entire history of 1431.
What was the highest money used?
The biggest
previously?
one that's ever been done, and keep in mind, this is every city.
Okay.
Like, this is Dallas and Amarillo. To use 1431, you have to have 80,000 people.
Oh.
So, like, Pampa couldn't do it.
Okay. Yeah.
The biggest one ever done is 60 million, and that was done by San Antonio. San Antonio is about 10 times bigger than this. So them doing 60 would be like us doing 6. Or put another way, us doing 260 million would be like them doing over 2 billion. And really, when you look at this history, like, I was really interested to look at it because the average one, by the way, 4.3 million. The cities in our state have been pretty disciplined about using this. Like, I kind of expected maybe a bunch of egregious, craziness.
Yeah.
We are about to do the craziest thing that's ever been done in this section if we let this happen. And I'm going to tell you that this is part of my passion about this. Like, this is what I talked to the Lieutenant Governor about yesterday. Every city in the state, like, people say, I had someone for the Civic Center say, Alex, okay, maybe it wasn't right, but at least we're getting a Civic Center. And I said, no, it's not about a Civic Center. Like when we do this, every city in the state looks up there at Amarillo and says, wow, they just built a $260 million new arena in their city, and they didn't have to ask anybody. And I just think that's a crazy, slippery slope to begin to fall, off of. And so that's a little bit about 1431, and I probably just told you like everything I know about it.
Well, how do past elections factor in that most of the council members have been elected multiple times by sizable margins? Does that factor into whether people knew? Because we've been talking about this for a while.
Long time.
Yeah, I
And
think.
so they knew when they were voting for them where they stood.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've never thought of that question. That's a good question. So I think people probably did know, like all those, Cole wasn't on the council in November 2020, so all the 4 on there, they knew they had all voted for it. Was that, I think all 5 maybe voted for it. I can't remember. So yeah, here's what I would say. Everyone knew that 4 people, were for it. But here's what nobody knew. Nobody knew that they would do it after the majority of voters said no.
Yeah.
So I might vote, I might vote Ginger in or Howard in or Frida in or Eddie in, but I don't assume that they're going to take something that we said no to and say, like, our mayor did a press conference, late last week, and she said, the bottom line is that I hear from taxpayers that we need the project, and with all due respect, like that's just not how it. That's not how it works in America. That a leader, whether it's a mayor or a governor or whoever, gets to say, "Well, I've talked to some people, and they think we need to do this." She said, seeing the urgency, and that's a whole nother topic. We took action as needed. Like, it's a city council said, we know you said you didn't want to, but it's 18 months later, and she even says at one point, this is the only way we can get this done, and I don't feel like I just don't think that's right.
So what do you think the motivation is? Because, there's the downtown mafia talk and all that kind of stuff. Are they trying to make money off of this? That they would take such a radical step?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question. I'm going to make a comment. I'm not going to avoid your question, but I'm not really a kind of conspiracy guy. Like, listen, the mayor and 3 other people think we should do this. Clearly, Amarillo Matters thinks we should do this. They've all worked hard at it. And you know what? They have every right to think we should do this. Like, last night I spoke at an event and several hundred people came up, and Frida and Howard came. And I began by telling people, these people are my friends, Frida and Howard. I sit 30 feet from Howard in church every Sunday. The Sunday after I sued the city, I went up to Howard and broke the ice and said, are we still going to be friends? And I hope we can just be decent and disagree. So I would never attempt to try to figure out like what was in their minds. I think I just know that it's very, very, very important to them. I will say some things that will come out in a lawsuit is there have been comments made to people that say, we are getting this done, doesn't matter, before May 2023 when some of these people may not vote. And I just think it's really important, and they want it done, and they found a way. I don't think it makes them like terrible evil. I just disagree with it.
Speaking of that press conference with Major Ginger Nelson, since you brought it up, and I want to be accurate here, one of her comments was, using the tax notes allows us to move more quickly and saves us money in the long run, because we are in this environment where interest rates are fluctuating and changing quickly. Your comment on that statement?
Yeah. I kind of wish you hadn't asked me that question.
Why is that?
Well, because I just strongly don't feel like, here's what I think. I think the whole, listen, the mayor, Howard made a statement at the city council meeting, and I didn't hear it, I just kind of heard about it, but now I've gone back and looked at it. The mayor made some comments last Friday afternoon. Last night when Howard came to this event I was speaking at, he brought a statement, and he handed out to everyone as they left. And it's the same things the mayor said, like, not verbatim, but they've got their talking points. I think the interest rate issue is utterly politics 101. Like if you went to college for politics, I think this would be in the first week. And that is create a crisis that the thing I want to happen fixes. We don't have an interest rate crisis. Like, there would be a lot of ways to deal with interest rates. Like, first of all, interest rates, they're going up. They're going to be higher in 6 months. We're pretty sure. Probably may higher in a year. But over 30 years, interest rates are going to go up and they're going to come back down, and we would refinance at a lower rate. So it's not like we're stuck. There's no crisis. The other thing is the way you would deal with that. There's other ways to deal with that. Like, it's completely a distraction. The issue is, should you impose taxes on us that we don't want, and that you use this odd place to go do it? It's not about. So I think they've created a taxes, and I think your question shows it's a bit of a distraction. They're trying to create a crisis. Here's what else we could do to deal with interest rates. We could not build the building. Like, You know, the majority of people said we don't want to build the building. Like, you don't have to worry about interest rates if you don't build the building. Or how about this? I guess the building now is going to be in the 260 range. You know, that this thing they're going to do is mostly the arena. Well, we can build an arena that I think is better. It will perform better financially and functionally in every way for $100 million less. You want to save money? Like, why don't we build the right size building? Like, if I could get in on that discussion. And so it's like going to the shop and seeing a dress that's on sale, and it's not the right size, and maybe it's not the right color, and it's not really the style, but it's going to go up in price in 3 weeks. And so you say, well, let's just buy this right now because it might be more expensive. It's not that much different than that. And so I don't think there's a crisis. I think it's let's create a crisis and say, well, here's how we fix the crisis. Like, you know, Ginger said, the longer we wait, the more it costs. That is undeniable. 2 more weeks, this is as a result of how come Cole can't have 2 more weeks, just puts it at risk that our interest rate will go up. If it goes up 1 point, that's $15 million. The longer we wait, this problem just continues to grow in cost. It's like people, the sky's falling, like, let's just hurry up and do the deal. That doesn't make sense. It's not good business. It's not good governance. And I don't think we have an interest rate. You know, I don't think we've got an interest rate crisis.
I think one thing, Alex, 18 months ago when we talked on the Prop A specifically, you actually want good things to happen downtown. That was your statement back then. Are you still that way?
Absolutely. In fact, I kind of cringe at this effort because, listen, Prop A was tough. It was just a hard discussion, you know, and, you know, people were for it, which they have every right to be. You know, I wasn't for what exactly we were doing. I wanted to do something, but not that. And, you know, it was a battle. And I knew some time would kind of have to go by. Like, I immediately went to work and put together a plan, and I was met with, Alex, we can't do this right now. It's too raw. Which was really a fair statement. When I saw this coming up and getting forced to, I thought, this just puts further off what we're ever going to, because what I was saying in these months since I called that meeting was, folks, we can get to a good place if we can build a good enough plan, and if it's smart enough, and if we can explain it well enough, because people are smart. You can't slide things by people. And then I think we can talk them into it. And if we can get the price tag to the right place, where we're not asking for $300 million, now 500, 260, whatever the number is, I felt like we could get Amarillo to say, like, listen, we're sitting here in Hodgetown. Like, listen, we did this once all together. You know, worked out pretty good. Like, I think we could do it again. And so I hated it because I thought this just puts off, like, if they don't pull this off, like if it gets stopped, it's just pushed off what we're going to get to do further, because people are just, listen, Lance, I don't know, but I think you were at that event last night. Listen, people's hair is on fire about this.
They were fired up. There's no doubt about that.
Like, so I'm afraid but I think we will eventually get something done. I would like to lead trying to get something done, not to be the leader, but so we could get something done that's good, that people could be confident in. And yeah, that's too long to say, yeah, I really would like to get something done, but I just want it to be smart and work well once we get it done.
Let me ask you this. So this lawsuit is really a measure to stop what's going on. Before or after Prop A failed, you came with a plan for another alternative for this. Have you had the time to look at that, or is it because it's less than a month this has all happened? Have you had time to say, here's an alternative, here's another solution, or are you just really trying to say, let's put the brakes on this before we go down a rabbit hole?
Yeah, this lawsuit isn't really about what kind of building you think you want or what. This lawsuit is about, I don't think you should get to taxes $260 million without really getting asked us.
Right.
Like, I think constitutionally that our argument is going to be, like, no one in our state legislature intended for cities to get to do things like this without asking. That's all it's about. I haven't spent time really worrying about the bill. I've looked at it enough to know it's the same thing, basically. But I don't think the discussion is what I think about the building. I don't think it's that great, but if it was perfect, I would have filed the lawsuit.
Still, yeah. So that whole bit. Well, you look at history, and this is a bigger scale than what we're talking about here. This is just a place for people to gather, but you've seen throughout history, we can go to Abe Lincoln with the Emancipation Proclamation. That wasn't a popular decision. The public really didn't. A majority, you look at somewhere like Maryland at that time, and if you look at the election results, Nixon had 2%, Lincoln had 2%, and it was because of the issue of slavery. You move toward Johnson and the Civil Rights Amendment. People were still saying, wait, we need to wait. Let's just let time do it and take care. This is not anywhere close to those two types of things. Her action, nowhere close.
Yeah.
But we've seen it happen before, where a leader or a government has said, we're going to do this, and the people be damned. Do we lose the kindness? Do we lose the public if we push this through? If this is ramrodded through and this is done, is our city divided then? Is that what we're looking at if this happens?
Oh, I think we definitely lose the public. I honestly, for this city council, I think they've lost the public. Like, I think that's over. I think that's over. And I don't think most of them are, running again, I understand, which maybe is why they were more comfortable. But
It says run out the door with the
But
house on fire.
I think at the core, at the very core, I think, because I've talked to a prominent businessman in Amarillo who everyone would know. He's been a friend of mine. I'd say a good friend, maybe a little less friendly, this right now. But he said to me, he said, Alex, like, so they did it wrong. Like, at least, we're getting a civic center. And I think that's my answer was, no, we don't get to do it this way. Like, what about the next decision that they do anyway, and you just don't happen to like that one, and you happen to like this one? And I think the response, which of course we're watching on social media, and that meeting I went to last night, those people, someone said, good job. I said, Bozo could have good job. Like, those people came, they were mad. So I think we lose them. And I think that's the core issue. I don't think that the majority of Amarillo trust what's going on right now. People say, this guy said, well, but they just vote everything down, Alex. And I said, well, yeah, that's how it works in America. People get to vote, and if 51% vote something down, then we're not going to do it. In fact, that's what I would say to the mayor. The mayor said, the bottom line is, I hear from taxpayers we need the project. Well, you know what? It doesn't work that way. If you think if you're convinced taxpayers are for the project, then why don't we have another bond election? Like, I would say, let's have another bond election. And I would say, if that bond election goes through and it's this building, what I don't think is the best thought out, then after that, you know what would be my job? Would be to support it. Because when most people say this is what we want in America, that's what we do. I didn't vote for the last president, but I kind of don't. I kind of get, so wait, my guy gets to get in here, and so it's just very core thing, and that's why I think it's worth fighting for.
Yeah. Hey, go ahead,
Mitch. You got something?
Yeah, so the use of 1431 and kind of the circumstances surrounding going forward with this project, I asked the mayor the exact same question. Do you think this goes against the principles of democracy?
100%. In fact, that's like almost the only question. Like, I do, and I think there's a lot of things that happen for a citizen, me, you, anybody you disagree with, and you just roll with it. But principle things like that, to me, if you have the means and you can withstand the criticism you're going to get, I think Americans have to stand up for those things. I don't think people would have ever come here from England if somebody didn't think that, and I don't think many things that we have. I think they're worth defending. So yeah, I don't think it's a Republican topic or a Democrat topic. I think it's a democratic topic, and I think most of those people there last night thought the same thing.
And Alex mentioned, Mitchell, that, and not to bring up a number, but almost $250,000 out this lawsuit could cost, right?
Yeah, that's the budget. Like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm just saying, that, to your point.
Yeah.
But that's how much she believes in
And the
this.
answer she gave me was she thinks this could be, seen as a form of representative democracy.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to see kind of what your reaction is to that.
Yeah, I think that was a fancy way to say I get to do what I want. Like I said, when city governments want to raise taxes, there's a few ways to do it, and they all involve accountability. So you can't just say, well, you voted me in, so I just, this was my decision. I get to do what I want if I have the votes. Like principally, if listen, that just would be chaos to say, well, you elected me. The law doesn't give them the ability, in my opinion, to do this. And the answer can't be, well, you elected me, I just get to do what I want. And that's a painful, she said, seeing the urgency, we took action as needed. It's kind of like, the bottom line is I hear from taxpayers, we took action as needed. It's not like, hey, this is what I think, this is what I want. It's one thing that in looking over and preparing, there's all these we statements in here, in her notes. We know what the need is. We know the project needs to be done. This is just the environment we are in. Listen, my question would be who is we? Like, we as in Amarillo, like, we spoke in November 2020, and we said 61 to 39, we don't want to do this. Now, she's articulated what kind of she thinks people said, but really what they said, they just said no. And a lot of people probably had a lot of other thoughts about what they were really thinking. Maybe some thought it's COVID, maybe something I don't like the plan, maybe some things, maybe someone's just against everything, but yeah, I don't think, I can tell you this, if we show up in a courtroom, her lawyer's arguments will not be, we're a representative government, so you elected us, we can do. I promise you, that will not be their argument.
Yeah. And that's really kind of splitting hairs. If you look, we are a democratic government, but we run a republic, a representative government. We elect representatives. And so that's the hair. We elected you, and we expect you to cover out what our wishes are. And that's where we, like you said, Alex, it's a slippery slope that we could go down on this issue, where you just arbitrarily say, well, this is what we're going to do. And that's the tough part of it. The big worry, though, is that a kick of the can further down the road? Is this going to make it further and further until we do something about our civic center? I mean, the urgency's there, the need is there. It's just trying to figure out how we do it.
When I tend to be an optimist, and sometimes it's a strength, sometimes it's a weakness. But I think there's a way to do something incredible downtown. I think it might have been you. I don't follow social media. I mostly hear, like, my wife tells me she hears this or that, but who brought up, I don't know who it was, who brought up the question of, if we create something else and it's somebody else, are they kind of potentially competing with Hodgetown? Right. And like that's a I don't know who brought that up, but that's a very, very, very valid point that if we do something and we're not really, really thoughtful and smart about it, that we could be undermining this.
There you go.
And in my opinion, that plan will utterly undermine this and make this less successful. So, yeah, I think there's a lot. So in my optimism, I think we can absolutely get something done if we just could get together. Yeah. But at the end of the day, no matter like if I could say, this is the best plan, I think, and here's why, and everyone would listen to me argue. This lawsuit is about, at the end of the day, if everyone says, if 50.1% say, Alex, we're not really going for this, then the answer is, we just don't get to.
I agree.
And I don't get to say, well, maybe I'll become mayor, and then I can say, yeah, we do. We're going to anyway.
Yeah.
I
I
want to be
understand
mayor.
that.
I don't really want to be mayor. I'm not saying as no to that as you asked me that before.
I know. Got to keep
And
growing on it.
I don't wake up every day wishing I could be the mayor, but I'm going to tell you this, that if the person that says, sorry, we can do it if we want to, even though you guys didn't want to, I think we need a different mayor than that. I'm sorry. Like, if it was you, I would say, no. Like, we have to respect people and citizens and voters more than this. I think. I want to say that, gently, but I feel strong about that.
So are you advocating for recalling the city council and mayor?
No. That sounds like complicated, like a lot of mess. Like I would. I think the standards are really, really high, and also I just think those are messy. And listen, we'll get to vote next May, and whoever will run, and everyone. That's another thing. Everyone who will run, and everyone will vote who they want, and those will be the people we have. And no, I've heard that there's some little chatter about that. I wouldn't spend 2 seconds on that.
It's
Fair
unfortunate
question, though, fair.
that you weren't able. You pressed. You wanted to sit down. You wanted to be in those rooms. You wanted to be able to express, this is what I think and this is what I look at. And it's a shame now because once the lawyers become involved, everybody has to shut up. And
Yeah, I
that's
talked to
unfortunate.
Howard Smith. I saw him the Sunday after, and he hadn't seen the lawsuit, and I don't think, and he certainly didn't know my statement. And so I went up to him at church. I said, Howard, we're still friends. Like, I want to be still friends. He said, yeah, we're still friends. And, he's really gracious. Then, my statement came out after that, and it was, it was a little bit bumpier. Howard still being my friend. But at the end of the day, I think we should do it like that. Like, I don't want to attack anyone. I don't want to be ugly. Like, there's been some things on social media that are ugly. Like,
Yeah.
I disagree with the mayor on this, but I don't think we should be ugly. And I
agree.
I think there's some things that get said about her that they're not fair.
Not fair.
And I think you can disagree with people without
Making it personal.
being mean.
No,
and-
I agree.
Yeah.
With that. That's
Yeah.
Anything else, Mitch? Kevin?
I know it's a difference in scale, a large difference in scale, but we'll be up to the jury and the judge and everybody to decide the legality, the technical legality of it.
Yes, sir.
But when you're talking about the principle of asking permission, where do we draw the line? Do we do every annual budget we have a public vote? Because Amarillo has a horrible reputation of nasty no votes.
Yeah, no, you can't do things and then get to be upset and overturned by someone else that's in there. In fact, I think that's really what the issue of we got to hurry is about. I think the mayor would like to get this done, final, contracted, permanent. It's over. Can't talk about it anymore, except how we're going to pay for it before next May.
Gotcha.
And so I personally think that's really the crisis if we have one. But no, I don't think we can. I think we got to do things during the terms people are in, and they make the decisions. And as long as they follow the rules, then we got to roll with it. Like, a lot of people were against Hodgetown, but they voted and we did it, and then pretty much everyone got together. And I had a lot of people. So I was against this, but they got in there and helped, and that's how we have to do it.
Anything else, guys?
it. Thank you.
Alex, we appreciate your time today. I think it enlightened me. I got a lot of new
Yeah.
information out of this. We hope everybody does as well. So thank you for your visit today.
Thank you guys for coming. To be in full disclosure, I asked her, we sit down and talk about this. I want to do it in a way that was legitimate. Some people asked me, did you tell Lance what to ask you last night? Which I honestly thought was a little bit of an insult to you.
That was,
because
man.
you would never do
I
that.
know.
but
No,
I just
I refuse
appreciate
that
you
stuff,
guys.
yeah.
I appreciate you guys coming. And
We appreciate you doing it.
so thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right. Good stuff.
Cool.